Hey y'all, this is Tamika, the face behind Hey HR, and I'm going to talk about a topic that can be a bit confusing sometimes. Sometimes people may get harassment confused with discrimination, or they use them interchangeably. And you may wonder, like, how can we use it interchangeably? And there are times that you kind of can. So if you guys want to know the difference between discrimination and harassment, then definitely keep watching. So I am so thankful to still work a full-time job because it does a great job of giving us annual trainings. If you're looking for this to help you with your annual training, then you definitely want to take some notes, and this will be something great just to implement if you don't already have it in place, which is explaining to your employees the difference between discrimination and harassment. And let me tell you, one thing for sure that I like about the trainings is yeah, it is a little bit annoying, especially if you're doing it manually. But if you have it done in an automated way, even if you don't, your employees really are going to start feeling like the company understands that I don't want to be discriminated against and I don't want to be harassed. It really makes your employees feel like you understand or that you're protecting them. It really makes the employees feel like you're protecting them. So first, let's start with the definition of discrimination. Discrimination is a generic term for all kinds of biased treatment that negatively impacts a person's job opportunities based on protected characteristics. Some of these protected characteristics are prohibited by federal, state, and local laws, and some just aren't. Little confusing, but majority are protected, okay? You're like, you know what, Tamika, what are protected characteristics? Well, protected characteristics are your race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, and genetic information. Let's talk a bit about what harassment is, because then I can really go into some of the things that stems off of discrimination and harassment. So harassment is a particular type of discrimination that includes unwelcome or offensive conduct toward another person. You're like, well, Tamika, it includes discrimination? Yes, because you know what? The types of harassment that exist or that tends to happen from time to time are sexual or sex-based harassment, gender, disability, genetics, age, race or color, religion, national origin, social class, which is not found under discrimination, right? So social class, weight, and height. Now, it's super important to know what discrimination and harassment are, because they can really affect your employees. They can affect your productivity. They can affect your bottom line, which is your dollar, like how much money the company is making. And so a lot of times the consequences of harassment and abusive conduct is impact on mental health. Some people might start feeling like imposter syndrome. Some people might feel devalued. Some people might think about it so much that they don't think about work. They can't think clearly. It also includes strain on physical health. So me personally, when I felt like I was under pressure, I ended up with TMJ and had to get a whole night guard and all of this different stuff. Another time on another job, I was constantly getting calls. I worked in a call center. So I was constantly getting calls where people were cursing me out all day for whatever went wrong with the company. I started getting migraines. And working in a call center, let me be honest, that wasn't the company. That's the nature of the business, right? With the TMJ, it wasn't me being abused or harassed. It was just me trying to meet demand and expectations. It wasn't a situation where I could be like, oh, the company did me wrong. Well, they really didn't. So those are some physical health issues that can happen. But some other consequences of harassment or this repetitive abusive conduct is decreased productivity and morale. Sometimes folks be like, I ain't feel like working.
I want to work.
I ain't got the energy to work.
I don't feel like being here.
They look for reasons not to show up, reasons to call out. Increased risk of workplace accidents. So sometimes some people can really go into a flight or fight response if they see the person that's harassing them, and they could slip and fall on something they normally wouldn't have if they weren't having this flight or fight response. So increased workplace accidents. And that's just one example. I mean, there are tons more. So you could have two co-workers that's constantly riding in a car together. And if you constantly feel like you're being harassed or someone's really taunting you and bugging you, now you might get into a car accident because you can't even think about the road because you're so busy thinking about this whole hostile environment that you're in, right? So that's just another example. And then high rates of employee turnover. I think this goes without being said. If someone constantly feels like they're being discriminated or that they see discrimination or that there is harassment in the workplace, let me tell you, they're going to flight. It's not going to be a fight. Most times they're quitting, they're resigning, particularly in the US where you only have to give a 2 weeks notice. Most states are at will. So it really doesn't have to be a contract or you're not working on a contract. People will quit. There are 3 different types of scenarios that normally go with discrimination or harassment. And they primarily go with harassment. They're more common with harassment, but it can definitely happen with discrimination as well. And the first one is just a hostile work environment. I mean, I can talk about that for a while. I've talked about that when I talked about how to manage working with a difficult leader. I have a few videos where I've talked about that, so I'll definitely put those in the description below. But a hostile work environment is primarily unwelcome conduct based on a person's sex or other protected characteristics that is intimidating, abusive, or offensive. Just keep in mind that a work environment doesn't have to be like an office. It just doesn't have to be. A work environment can be anything where you have to be exposed to work conditions. So it definitely can be online. That's the first thing. Don't think, oh, well, we're all virtual. We don't have to worry about a hostile work environment. Yes, you can. Someone can constantly harass someone by scheduling repetitive meetings, and someone can taunt them over the phone. Someone can say things that are discriminatory over the computer or on video. Another thing is, if you have vendors that are coming in that support your business and they're being discriminatory or harassing your employee, then that's still called a hostile work environment because they're your vendors. So if you got a delivery man coming in, the postal guy coming in, or the postal lady, whomever, they can create a hostile work environment for your employees. Now, the second one is going to be quid pro quo. Now, quid pro quo harassment is primarily with harassment, and it's really kind of called, or I guess the nickname for it, or the easy, and definitely the easy way that I remember it is this for that. So a supervisor may tell an employee, you do this, then I'll give you this benefit at work. An example could be, you sleep with me, or you go out on a date with me, and I'll give you the promotion. So that's quid pro quo. You give me this, I'll give you that. Now, the final type of discriminatory act or consequence that goes with harassment and discrimination is abusive conduct. The AKA, or another term for that, is bullying. And with bullying, this is a little bit of a new one. So everyone already knows about the hostile work environment because that's existed for quite some time. Everyone already knows about quid pro quo because that's existed for quite some time. But bullying is still kind of new. It's still being addressed by law and doesn't have to take place in the work environment either. It doesn't even have to take place during work hours in order to cause an impact. So bullying could be cyberbullying or trolling. Bullying is still new. It's still not defined. There are not tons of cases like how you'd find tons of cases that have been brought before law on quid pro quo or hostile work environment or discrimination or harassment. So it's still very, very new, but it still exists. It's still protected in some cases. If at any time you feel like any of these things are happening to you, then you definitely want to report them. It's no different than if you're being a victim in domestic violence. You should call the police. If you don't call the police never knew that this existed. So you can end up dead one day, and now all of a sudden they're like, what happened? And trying to figure out who it is when it's really the person that's living in the house with you, right? So it's the same thing with bullying, harassment, quid pro quo, discrimination, hostile work environment. You have to report it or they don't know it exists, okay? So I hope that you guys found this video helpful. For those of you who are new, I hope that you found enough value to subscribe. For those of you who are returning, I hope I'm giving you what you're looking for. At the end of the day, I can't wait to see y'all on the next video.